Welcome to Gene Church. We're really excited you're here. Happy New Year. Welcome to those watching online, those in the room. Hey, if this is your first time, we're really glad you're here. Hopefully you are greeted on the way in, maybe given a bag that's just got some information as well as a couple little gifts from us to you. If you didn't grab one of those or weren't handed one, feel free to snag one from the welcome desk just right out here on your way out this morning. We're really glad you're here. We know there's a ton of stuff going on, and you don't want to listen to me give you every announcement for the next 35 minutes. So do me a favor. Make sure you're following us on social media, and more importantly, make sure you've downloaded the Jinx Church app, all right? Because that's where all the good information is, all the links like to buy merchandise. Because here's what's going to happen. In 2 weeks, when the store closes, I'm going to get 30 emails that says, oh, were you guys selling t-shirts? I didn't get one. I wanted a hoodie. The sale is open right now. So Facebook, Instagram has the link. The app has a link, all of that, so that you can get a Jinx Church shirt or hoodie or whatever. We've got the kids. We've got the students, right? Students, Caleb, they need to buy, represent the student ministry. And then just the regular Jinx Church one. Yes, I'm not wearing one today, which is odd. Because I had a little girl come up to me at Christmas Eve service, and she's like, Mr. Dave, this is the first time I've ever seen you not wearing a Jinx shirt. I'm like, well, that's my wardrobe. I have that and like 3 button-downs, and that's what I got. So go out, get you some of those, and have fun with that. There's a ton of good stuff. Student ministry, kid ministry, senior ministry, everything in between is all ramping up for the new year, so we're really excited. Stay up to date. If you've got questions, you can contact us through any of those platforms. And hey, let's be honest, we also need you to give, and we don't pass a plate. We've got one sitting out there, but most of our giving we do online, and so you can do that through the app or through our website. So make sure if you're partnering with us in any of the giving that you've got those resources available. Just makes it super easy. You can do one time, you can do reoccurring, whatever it is to make sure you're helping us do all the good works that we do in the community, all right? Hey, we're really glad you're here. Do me a favor, go ahead and stand up, and Heath and the team are going to lead us in worship this morning.
Lord. And you guys may be seated. After you've had time to take a communion this morning, we just ask that when your mind is ready, when your heart is right, that you just stand up and worship with us whenever you're ready.
broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed, but not forsaken. I've been set free. I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, and that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now, and I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down and raising up the broken to life. Take our failure, you take our weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see you now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes, laying yourself down, raising up the broken to life. In just a minute, we're going to begin to lift our voices, and I encourage you to lift up your own song. Make a new song for the Lord today. Whatever your heart is feeling, express that. full of stories of ancient and old time glory. Spirit of God, come do it again. A miracle working power, a moving in signs and wonders. Spirit of God, come do it again. Prepare the way, He's coming through. Ready or not, our God's on the move. We're gonna see heaven on earth. Come, Holy Spirit, awaken your church. God, you're just getting started. A testimony of more to come. Spirit of God, come do it in us. Rejoin in the faith of heaven and prophesy your kingdom here on earth. Spirit of God, come do it in us. Prepare the way, He's coming through. Ready or not, our God's on the move. We're gonna see heaven on earth. Come, Holy Spirit, awaken your church. Prepare the way, He's coming through. Ready or not, our God's on the move. We're gonna see heaven on earth. Come, Holy Spirit, awaken your church.
Sing this with me. Fire fall, wind come blow. We're ready for more, ready for more. Break down the walls, push back the doors. We're ready for more, ready for more. Fire fall, wind come blow. We're ready for more, ready for more.
Break down the walls, push back the doors. We're ready for more. Fire fall, wind come blow. We're ready for more, ready
gathered at the highest throne, welcomed by a melody, an anthem I have always known, a song that's always been in me. All glory and honor, dominion and power to you. A million angels fall, face down on the floor, all to echo, holy is the Lord. My heart can't help but sing with all of heaven roar, forever echo, holy is the Lord. Forever echo, holy is the Lord. Memorized by every heart, written in eternity. Every lifted voice proclaims, joining in the symphony. All glory and honor, dominion and power to you. All wisdom and wonder belong to no other but you. 1,000,000 angels fall, face down on the floor, all to echo, holy is the Lord. My heart can't help but sing with all of heaven roar, forever echo, holy is the Lord. Forever echo, holy is the Lord. There before the throne of grace, majesty before my eyes. Just let it take my breath away. A million angels fall, face down on the floor, all to echo, holy is the Lord. My heart can't help but sing with all of heaven roar, forever echo, holy is the Lord. 1,000,000 angels fall, face down on the floor, all to echo, holy is the Lord. My heart can't help but sing with all of heaven roar, forever echo, holy is the Lord. Forever echo, holy is the Lord. Forever echo, holy is the Lord. All right, amen. You guys may be seated.
All right. Well, good morning once again. Hey, we're really glad you're here. You are jumping in at the perfect time. So if it's your first time or just your first time in a while, or maybe it's your first time tuning in online, we are kicking off the new year with a new series called Better. And I get a hard time from the kids sometimes because I'm really competitive, but I've tried with my girls to kind of rein that in a little bit. And so I never want to be that dad that right at the end of a performance or a competition or a game or whatever it is, I don't want to give them the full breakdown of film, right? Here's all the things you could have done better. Here's all the things. I don't want to be that guy. And so I found myself searching for what exactly to say. And so this year, El Grace is in percussion, she's in band, and they'd have these competitions that last for eternity, all day. And you perform early in the day, and then if you do well enough, you perform later in the day. And so in between, you've got hours that you could break down film, that you could dissect and go through all the things. And yet instead, I found myself giving one simple phrase, right? They would come off, they would have some highs, some lows, some things they noticed, and my response was simply, hey, whatever you think you did this morning, this afternoon, do better. Which is great advice, right? Because it's open to interpretation. Doesn't matter if they think they were horrible, they can do better. Doesn't matter if they thought they were the best they'd ever been, they could do better. Well, that's kind of the idea behind this series, is we want you, wherever you're at, whatever 2022 look like, as we move into the new year, we move into a new season of life, whether it was the best or the worst, whether last week was great or terrible, whether last night was a horrible night with sick kids and screaming and work and whatever, or it was the greatest thing ever, whatever, make today better. Just make today better. And then tomorrow when you wake up, make tomorrow better. And so that's kind of the theme here. That's kind of what we want to do. And as we process through this is the whole idea. That wherever you're at in your spiritual journey, we want you to leave here today better. That wherever you're at in your walk with Jesus, that tomorrow, we want tomorrow to be better. That we as a church, as a family, as a corporate group that meets together on Sundays, we want each time we're together, each ministry, each day, we just want it to be better. And if we'll work on that, and we'll make that happen all year long, when we get to this point next year, we will be in a much, much different place. So that's kind of the backdrop. That's the setting for what we're going to talk about over the next couple of weeks as we go through this series. But the idea is we want you to start. Because what happens oftentimes this time of year is we come up with resolutions or you set goals for yourself, and oftentimes they're such big, lofty goals that you know you need, but you don't really feel great about. So you start, and then you get a day in or a week in, and then you stop. Right? It's, I'm going to read the Bible in a year, which is amazing until you get to Lamentations, and then you quit. Because nobody reads Lamentations, right? It's just hard, right? There's all these things that, so we don't want to set a goal. All right, our church is going to read the Bible in a year. No. If you read your Bible, do better. Read more. If you've never read before, open it up. That's better. Right? You kind of see where I'm going with this? We're not going to set these big lofty vision goals. One, because if we learned anything in 2020, churches across America had this 2020 vision, right? That's the easiest sermon title ever. And then COVID happened, and we didn't have a clue what was going on, right? And so this year, there's no big numbers. There's no big, we're going to accomplish this year. You know what we are going to do? We're going to be better. We're going to be better at everything. We're going to be more generous. We're going to be more loving. We're going to serve more. We're going to help more. We're going to reach more. We're going to do more, right? Because we want to constantly be better at everything we do. I'm going to set it up this way because I know there's folks in the room who are saying, you know, Dave, this is my first time to church, or this is my first time tuning in online, or I've been gone for a long time, and there's some reasons I was gone, so I'm not sure I'm ready to be better yet. Well, if you know me, there's three stories that I go to all the time, right? When we're talking about redemption stories, when we're talking about overcoming, there are three stories I love to use. I love to use Peter's denial of Christ. I love to use Paul's conversion story. And I love to use the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. And that's where we're going to be today. And we're not going to go through the whole story in text. You can read that at home later on your own. But just to kind of give you some backdrop before we actually do jump into Scripture, the story starts in the middle of the day. The middle of the day out at a well. Nobody goes to a well in the middle of a day. This lady, this Samaritan woman, is at the well in the middle of the day because it's nobody else is there. It's isolated. It's alone. See, because she knows what everybody else knows. that her life is a mess, that she has not been getting better, that one bad decision leads to another. She's now an outcast in her family, an outcast in her community. There's nothing she's doing that's currently working in her life, and so she's avoiding everybody. She's avoiding the gossip. She's avoiding the looks. She's avoiding everything. So she goes to the well in the middle of the day, and this Samaritan woman shows up, and who is there to meet her but this Jewish man? Now, if you want to talk about polar opposites, Samaritan women, Jewish men. Not only did the cultures not interact, but the genders didn't interact. Like, they could not be more opposite, and yet they find themselves there in this conversation, and Jesus begins by talking about, hey, could you get me something to drink? She goes, you don't even have a bucket. You don't have anything to get water. How in the world are we going to get something to drink? You don't have anything. And he says, hey, do you know who I am? Because if you knew who I was, you would actually be asking me for a drink. And at this point, she gets a little nervous, right? Because this conversation is not a normal conversation. She's already keyed in that something is different, that something isn't as usual. And he goes on to tell her about her life, about how she's had 5 husbands. She's living with another guy. That life doesn't look right. But he says, hey, but if you know who I am, it'll change your world. If you knew what kind of access you had in this moment. And I love her response because she says, hey, I know that there's this Messiah and that he's coming. Right? She had some information about a Messiah. And he says, that is me. And in a moment, she sees Jesus. And not looks at him, not realizes he's there, but she sees him. She sees who he is. And when she sees Jesus, when she realizes the experience she's having, which is it changes her life forever. And everything from that moment on is better. Not free of conflict, not free of gossip, not free of all the stuff she brought with her to the well that day, but it's better. And that can be your story. For some of you, that is your story. And it's time that we continue this journey of being better. We pick up the story because that's not the teachable part, right? The teachable part begins when the disciples show up. Look at what it says. John chapter 4, we're jumping in right in the middle in verse 27. It says, just then, his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman, but no one asked. They thought it, but nobody asked. What do you want? Or why are you talking with her? Then, leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? They came out of the town and made their way toward him. Meanwhile, his disciples urged him, Rabbi, eat something. And he said to them, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. And then his disciples said to each other, could someone have brought him food? It's Sunday. Chick-fil-A is not even open. How does he... My food, Jesus said, is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. You know what's sad is too often we settle for being like the disciples instead of being like Jesus. Right? Too often we say, listen, I could be a lot worse. I could be like any of those other people, but I'm a lot like Peter. I'm a lot like... Listen, our call is not to be like the disciples. Our call is to be like Christ. See, in this moment, unfortunately, all the disciples could focus on was the temporary. All the disciples could see was the circumstances right in front of them, their plans, their ideas, what they thought needed to happen. And what they missed was Jesus. What they missed was his plan for their life. See, they were focused on the temporary. They were focused on the circumstances. And Jesus was focused on the big picture. He says, hey, you know what satisfies me? You know what fills me up? It's not a 10-count chicken mini, although those are amazing, right? What fills me up is to do God's will. What fills me up, what satisfies me, what quenches my thirst, what satisfies my hunger is to finish the work God started. That's what I love about this story. The redemption, the change in the Samaritan woman, that's great. But the teachable lesson for you and I, the teachable lesson for us who call ourselves Christians, Jesus followers, is we've got to stop looking at what's right in front of us. Stop trying to control and manipulate and handle everything. And we've got to remember that our call is a call to something better. Our call is to do the will of the one who sent us. Our call is to finish the work of God. That's a big call. That's something exciting. And Jesus just so desperately wanted somebody to get it, didn't he? Right? The whole book of John up to this point is Jesus just trying to find somebody who will get this vision, who will share in his vision. In John chapter 1, he calls the disciples, right? But they don't get it. They're clueless. 3 chapters later, they still don't get it. John chapter 2, right? He goes to church. He goes into the temple thinking, all right, this is where we'll figure it out. He sees the money changer. He sees everything. They've lost priorities. They don't even remember why they're there or what's important. All right, call some disciples, get some followers together. They don't get it. Goes to church. They don't get it. Well, John chapter 3, he has a small group meeting with a religious leader, right? One-on-one Bible study with some church folk who get so distracted by the details of words that they miss the opportunity to have life. Like Nicodemus could not wrap his mind around this idea of being born again, so much so that he couldn't fathom what Jesus right in front of him was offering. But in John chapter 4, an outcast, an adulterer, somebody whose family doesn't even want anything to do with them, sees Jesus and she gets it. She understands what the calling is. She gets the vision that Jesus had. The vision that when you meet him, when you see him, when you experience him, your whole world changes. And it changes how you interact. And so she immediately goes back and she tells everybody because his purpose became her purpose. His focus became her focus. His passion became her passion. She was fired up. Can you imagine how excited she would have had to have been to run back and all these people that she daily avoided, now she's talking to them? And she's opening with, hey, he already knows. But here's what he gave me. Here's how my life changed. She overcame all her fear, all her embarrassment, all her worry, all her excuses in a moment because she saw Jesus. And when we interact with him, when we see him, it changes everything. And that's what we want, right? As pastors, as staff, as leaders. Every Sunday when I get up here, like that's my goal. My goal is to get you excited. Not just excited for excitement's sake. We try that, right? We try and make you laugh. We try and hook you in with some great music and worship and all those things. And Caleb tells a funny story that nobody really knows where he's going until he gets to the end. And then it works perfect every time, right? But we want you excited, not about church, not about stuff. We want you so passionate and so excited about your interaction with Jesus that it changes everything, that your whole world is better simply because you know him. So how do we do that, right? And pastors we're always trying to find a new way to do it. Paul is a great place to start if you want an excited church. He would say in Romans, right, he would just look at the church in Rome. He'd write his letter, he says, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. You've been commanded to be excited. Are you excited? Right? It doesn't work like that, does it? For years, church was great. We would guilt you into excitement. You wouldn't really be excited, but you would fake it because we would guilt you until you felt like you had to, and then you didn't really know how, right? Or if you got too excited, you got in trouble, right? Don't point, we know who you are, right? But we don't know what to do with too much excitement. And so how do we even handle this? Well, see, the idea is we can't guilt you into it, we can't command you into it, but we can do exactly what Jesus did. Because again, we're not called to be like his disciples. We're called to be like him. So in verse 35, here's what Jesus did. He tells them, he says, don't you have a saying, it's still 4 months until harvest? I tell you, open your eyes and look. That's the line right there. Open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. They're ripe right now. Don't wait 4 months. Don't wait 4 years. Don't wait until you have life all together, right? You come out. You get up early on a Sunday. You come here every week. What are you waiting for? Let's not wait until the kids are this or the schedule's that. Right now. Right now, we have an opportunity. Right now, the fields are ripe, but we've got to open our eyes. He says, open your eyes and look. See, he had such tremendous passion. He couldn't wait any longer, right? The disciples, they're seeing the temporary. Hey, you need something to eat. We need some logistics. We need to figure this out. He goes, no. Now, let's go now. Because it matters eternally. It's not about the immediate. It's not about the temporary. It's about the eternal. It's not about the circumstances. It's about the mission. That we're to be about the works of him who sent us. We are to finish the work that God started. See, what Jesus had that you and I need is better vision. Right? Better vision, because vision, his vision fueled his passion. Right? When Jesus could see the big picture, Jesus could see the fields, he could see the opportunities, and that just fueled all of his passions. It fueled everything he did, every decision he made. And when you and I can begin to live like that, when we can open our eyes and see as Jesus sees, when we can open our eyes and begin to acknowledge the opportunity in every conversation and every interaction, then our passion for him grows. See, if we're going to have better vision, it's not just about showing up. Let me give you a definition just so you know what we're working with here, right? Here's my definition of better vision. The ability to see God's presence, to perceive God's power, and to focus on God's plan despite circumstances. That's better vision. That's what you and I need. That's what the disciples needed in that moment. That's what we have to have every day when we wake up. We've got to be able to look out there and know God is with me. And not only is he with me, but he is a mighty God. He is a powerful God. He is still in control. But I've got to focus on his plan, not my circumstance. See, as we go into this year as a church, there's a lot of unknown. There's going to be some challenges. There's going to be some obstacles. We want to do some things. We feel God is calling us into some areas and into some opportunities that we don't know how we're going to do it all. But we can't focus on the circumstances. We've got to focus on the plan and acknowledge it's his power that's going to get us there. That it's his presence with us that's going to move us. That's why we kind of set this verse out ahead of you. If you watched online last week, as we kind of wrapped up last year and kicked off the new year, I gave you a verse that said we're going to kind of rally around for the whole year. It's from Philippians 3. There's more of it, but just for today's purpose, I shrunk it down to just the last half of 13 and verse 14. But it says this. It says, hey, forgetting what is behind, right? And I love that. Forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. It says, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Whatever last year was, that's last year. Whatever yesterday was, that's yesterday. Today is an opportunity to do better. Today is an opportunity to strain forward, to press on to God's plan, to the goal he set out, to what he's established. Not what I want, not what you want, not right? But forgetting what's behind, good and bad, straining, pressing, moving forward to the goal that God has called us to heavenward. Better, just better vision. Better acknowledgement that God's with us. Better acknowledgement of his power. Better focus on his plan so that we can win, right? Because we all like to win. We finish the work that he started so that we can do the will of him who sent us and finish the work of him. All this came about a couple months ago, actually, when we were in a series and we were just talking about future and things. And I asked you to raise your hand if you were here about 4.5 years ago when I started, when my family moved to Jinx and we started, and we were astonished that day of how few hands went up. So much so, and if you weren't here, it was a room about this full, and there were maybe, 15, 20 hands. And it wasn't because everybody was sick or not here that day. It was, that's what kind of transitions happened. And it got us thinking, like it was a conversation for weeks, and every staff meeting and every leadership conversation I had with a lot of you, we had that conversation, just nobody realized what a difference. And if you're new at this, you're jumping in at a great time because you're going to kind of get a little bit of that, but you're also going to be right on the ground floor as we move forward from all that. You say, well, okay, Dave, well, how did that happen? Like, what was that? Well, I remember it, right? And I've thought back through it a lot this week. When we came on in the summer of 2018, I remember, right, we're going to focus on the ABCs, right? Just what are the first 3 steps? What are the first couple of things we've got to figure out to help get this church where we believe God is calling us to, which is why we moved here and all these things, right? So we started with some simple ABCs. We started with some atmosphere, right? That first few 6-8 months, year, like we were just trying to change the atmosphere because there was a lot of hurt. There was a lot of baggage. There was a lot of scars. There was a lot of confusion. There's a lot of tired folks because they had transitioned from another building to this building and some changeover in staff and all those things. And so we were just trying to lighten the mood a little bit, right? Have a little fun and bring some smiles on people's faces. So we focused a lot on that. And then that next year, moving into that next year, we really wanted to just bring some balance. That we wanted to get an identity and determine who is Jinx Church, who is God calling us to be, and let's get some stability. Let's get some balance here where we're outward focused, but we're also helping internally and trying to balance out ministry. And man, we were just killing it, and God was blessing us, and everything was going well. And then everybody knows what 2020 brought, right? Confusion, uncertainty, a million trial and error opportunities. And man, did we use them all, right? We failed way more than we succeeded, but we had fun doing it, right? And so this whole plan of, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, we thought was working, and then it didn't. And then we come out of it, we spent all last year just trying to figure out who we are and go back through atmosphere and get some balance. And then, well, now we had to add some commitment. Like we've got all new people. Who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to serve in teams? Who's going to lead, right? We began to evaluate all of that. But here's what happens in churches. Oftentimes, that's where you get stuck. You get through A and B just fine, but when you get to C, something happens. We start back over. It's kind of like when you go to the gym, right? Listen, I've seen all kinds of posts about gym people in January. I think it's great. Go to the gym. Don't go to the gym, whatever, right? But don't do this. Here's what I know happens to majority of first-time gym goers. They try and do so much, right? I'm going to lose all 65 pounds on day 1. And then they're so sore on day 2 that day 3 never happens. And that's what happens in churches, right? We try and fix everything right away, and we've got to put out every fire and solve every problem and deal with every complaint. And, well, now we're just starting over again. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be better. And we're going to move on to D, E, and F, and G, and right? We're not going to start over. We're not going to keep cycling. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep trusting. We're going to finish the work that God started. And that's the vision. And I don't know all the details. I don't know what all of it's going to look like, but I know it's a few things. And I know if you'll buy into it, if you'll walk down this journey with us, I know God will change your life forever because he always does. All throughout history, when people sell out, when they go all in with Jesus, he changes everything. So we're not going to lose sight. We're not going to get bogged down. We're going to continue to be better. We're going to see his presence better. We're going to acknowledge his power better. And we're going to focus on his plan better. And forget about the circumstances that we can't figure out. All right, y'all got to listen faster. I got a lot to say, and we're running out of time. All right, let me give you a couple things. Some of you are like, how do you listen faster? Your wife will explain it when you get home today. Don't worry. Twice, because you won't hear it the first time. Let me tell you about better vision. Better vision is going to do some things, and this is where you buy in, right? This is where you join us in our journey. But better vision Better vision is going to force us to change. It's going to force you to change personally. Right? If you truly acknowledge Jesus, you acknowledge his power, and you focus on his plan, you will not be the same today as you, or this time next year as you were today. So here's what I want you to do. Pull out your phone, piece of paper, make a mental note if your brain is better than mine, right? Scale of 1 to 10, where are you at right now in your spiritual journey, right? You're not a 0. 0 would be atheist, I don't believe in God, I want nothing to do with any of this. I'm the worst person ever. You're at church, so you immediately aren't 0, right? So you're either 1, you can get up to 9. If anybody wrote 10, you need to erase it and put 9 right now, because 10 would be like next to Jesus, and you thought you were a 10, so that's arrogant, so you're immediately back to 9, right? So you're somewhere between 1 and 9, right? But I want you to write it down. I want you to think about it. Where were you in January of 2022? Are you better than you were? Where are you at right now? Because wherever you're at, there's room to get better. Even if you're a 9, you can get a 9.1, 9.2, right? You may not be able to get 9.5, but you can do better. I want you to think about it. Because see, when you fully acknowledge who Jesus is, when you trust his power and his plan, you cannot stay the same. History proves your life will forever be changed. Your decisions will change. Your commitment will change. Everything about who you are will change for the better. So where are you at? All right, let's get better. But not only will it change you personally, it's going to change us as a group. If a group of people, see, we don't want a growing church that doesn't have growing people. So we're going to start with growing people, and if we can help you develop, if we can help you grow and disciple you and help you grow spiritually in your journey, our church will grow, not just in number. We don't care about that. We don't set number goals. What we care about is we want a group of growing individuals, because we know what happens when people buy into the mission of God. People grow, churches grow, the kingdom grows, and that's the finished work. The finished work is not a big church. The finished work is that Jesus came to seek and save the lost of the entire world. So until we've got the whole world, we've still got work to do. We're not done till the kingdom grows. So that's where we are. But listen, that requires some things, all right? That's going to force us to change some things. And you say, Dave, I don't really like change. Well, I get that, right? But look at what Paul said. Paul, sitting in a prison cell writing a letter, said this: "To the weak, I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some." He knew. He knew his power was limited. He knew his role in the bigger story of God was small, but he was going to do everything he could, everything it took to do it. So I'm going to change anything. I'm going to become all things so that I might save some. Why? Because change is fun? No. For the sake of the gospel. For the sake of the good news. I'll do whatever it takes to get the message of Jesus into the world. And when you do that, you get to share in its blessings. That's it. That's the change. Well, Dave, what does that mean for us? Are we going to change service times? Are we going to change music? Are we going to change? I don't know. But I know this. If it helps us get the gospel out, we're going to do it. If it changes how many lives we can reach and impact, we're going to do it. Right? And that's what's amazing about Jinx Church. There are people here who don't like most of the changes we've made. But you know why they're still here? Because they love sharing in the blessings of what God is doing. And they realize it's not about me. It's not about them. It's not about you. It's about doing whatever it takes to seek and save the lost. It's about doing whatever it takes, going wherever we've got to go, changing whatever we've got to change, helping whoever we've got to help so that we can help move the mission of God along. Bigger vision, better vision. It's going to force us to change, but it's also going to drive us to our knees, right? It's going to drive us to a place where we have to truly experience God. Now, this one's hard for us, right? Because our culture is inherently anti-kneeling. Did you realize that? Like our whole country, our whole history as a nation, as a culture, was founded on a whole bunch of guys saying, I'm not kneeling to you. Really, you can say it's religion and freedom and all that. No, it was a bunch of guys who didn't want to kneel to somebody else and pay money. Not a lot's changed in 200 years, but that's another message for another day, right? But that was like our whole culture says, no, I'm not kneeling to anybody. I'm proud. I'm going to stand up. I'm not going to. But when you really see God's presence, when you perceive God's power, you have no choice but to kneel, to fall down. I love that echo holy. 1,000,000 angels fall face down on the ground because they know. They've seen God. They know his power. And if heavenly creatures fall and kneel, it's going to force us. We're going to get a vision of who God is and what he wants to do. We'll have no choice but to kneel. Kneel in praise. We're going to celebrate him. We're going to acknowledge him. But we're going to do it in a way that says, God, I'm not worthy to be in your presence. I have no business being your representative, but thank you for letting me do it. Thank you for letting me be a part of your story. God, I'm going to kneel in humility in front of you. But it's also going to drive us to our knees in prayer. God, we can't do this by ourselves. God, you've given us a task. You've given us a vision. You've given us problems so big, we can't solve them on our own, so we need you. We invite you in. We need your resources. Listen, that's why over the next couple of days, starting tomorrow morning, you're going to get a daily prayer reminder. And if you don't get those starting tomorrow, that means we don't have your contact information, and you need to let us know because we want to be a part, we want you to be a part of praying with us for our church. And it's not going to be the obligatory so-and-so sister's cousin's dog's puppy has a hurt toe and, right? Those are fine. Pray for those. Pray for the puppies. I had one, needed some prayers. It's going to be big stuff. It's going to be vision stuff. And we want you to partner with us. We want you to have better vision of what God's calling us to. So big that it drives us to our knees, that it forces us to call out and ask for him to come in. That's why when he was describing this to his followers toward the end of his ministry, Jesus said this in John 14. It says, very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing. That's our vision. But they'll do even greater things. They'll do even greater things than these because I'm going to the Father. In other words, Spirit-led people, Spirit-filled churches do more, do better than even what Jesus did in his short time here on earth because he intercedes for us. And I will do whatever you ask in my name so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. You may ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it. Vision so big that we can't do it alone. Vision so big that when it happens, we'll know, and the whole world will know that's only because God was blessing that. He did it, not that church. That's just a bunch of jacked up people. But they're sharing in the blessings of the gospel because they've got better vision. I got to hurry. Better vision will unify us. Right? It's going to force us to change. We're going to develop into something more. It's going to force us to our knees. We're going to experience God in a new way, but it's also going to unify us. It's going to create fellowship amongst us. Right? That these shared experiences, and you've had them, you go on trips together, you go on vacation together, you go through something traumatic or something just happy and exciting, it bonds you together. And if we're living life together, then it's going to unify us. Because anything we change, it won't matter. We're not going to have division because of change, because we're changing for the sake of the mission. And when you change for the sake of the mission, it pulls you together. When you share life, when you share those experiences, it pulls you together. When you have people loving you and encouraging you and supporting you and holding you accountable, man, that sounds an awful like connect groups. Listen, you love a pastor's wife who gets the joke instantly right there. You should be in a connect group. You're just showing up on Sundays, you're only getting half of what we offer. And I'm not mad about it, I just feel bad for you. You need to be in a group that holds you accountable. You need to be in a group that encourages you and loves you and knows what you're going through. You need to be in a group that's sharing a vision that's helping you be better. Because that better vision is going to unify us, but that better vision is also going to force us to sacrifice. Big vision comes at a big cost. But when you've got that vision, when you see what God sees, when you're looking at every conversation, every relationship, every opportunity as an opportunity from God, for God to show up, for somebody to meet him and change their life forever, you'll give whatever it takes. You'll give more money. We need that. We're gonna talk about that. You'll give more time. We need that too. You're going to hear about that. We're going to talk about that. We're not going to shy away from asking you to sacrifice, because we're not asking you to sacrifice for us, to pay a light bill, to do a job. We're asking you to sacrifice so that we can finish the work that God started. And we believe it's important enough to sacrifice and give up our time, our energy, to sacrifice a kids' event, to sacrifice going out of town, to sacrifice. I don't know what you're going to be asked to sacrifice. Here's what I know. You've heard it a million times. Salvation's free. Costs you nothing. Following Jesus will always cost you something. And the more you grow, the deeper your relationship with him, the more it's going to cost. But you'll be willing. Here, take all my monies. It was great. At the end of Everything Must Go, we gave out a little over $53,000. We were super excited, everything. I got an email like 2 days later that said, hey, we gave to that. We loved it so much, we're giving again. And gave another $1,000 check. Because when you see what God sees, when you want to be a part of his work, you'll sacrifice anything. Because that's what it calls us to. Last one, I promise. Here we go. Better vision. It's going to ignite your passion. Dave didn't just have more coffee today. Dave's excited. Dave's running out of time. And he's referring to himself in third person, which is really weird. I'm going to quit doing that. It's going to ignite your passion. And that's what we want. We want you passionate about your relationship with Jesus. We don't want you to love church. That's great. That's part of it. We want you to be so in love with Jesus that you share your vision. You share the mission. That you are actively, daily growing in your relationship with him. That you can't contain your excitement. You have no trouble being excited for your kids, grandkids, sports, right? Accomplishments at work. Those are all great. Be excited. I love to get excited about those things. But let's not let those things out-celebrate us when it comes to Jesus. We should be so passionately sharing what God has done. When you see him, you acknowledge his power in your life, and you can't take your eyes off of his plan, it's all you talk about. It changes your relationships. It changes your life. We want you so excited and fired up that you're willing to be united with a bunch of people that are different than you, and that you'll sacrifice whatever it takes. Because that kind of passion is contagious. That kind of compassion is how one woman who is scared to be around her friends and family is still being talked about thousands of years later. Because her vision got better that day. Here's how her story ends. Many of the Samaritans from the town believed in him because of her testimony. He told me everything I ever did, which isn't quite true, but you get the point. Preachers embellish sometimes. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them. He stayed 2 more days. And because of his words, many more became believers. And they said to the woman, we no longer believe because of what you said. Now we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this man really is the Savior of the world. She saw God's presence. She acknowledged his power. And she didn't focus on the gossip and the stories and the fear and the anxiety. She focused on his plan. And was so passionately excited that it changed a community. One lady. Imagine what a room of us could do if that became our story. Not just that we love Jesus at home, not just that we love Jesus on Sundays, but that every day, every conversation, every situation, we are proclaiming the presence and the power and the plan of God in our life. Changes the world. It's how you and I are here. That's how this church and many more like it will still be here in 1,000 years if we're lucky enough to still be on this big blue planet. Because Jesus came and started a mission. And if we'll share his vision, we can finish his work. So over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about this. We're going to pray about this. We're going to ask you to take your next steps into this. So even today, as we close, and go ahead and invite the rest of the band back up, I'm going to ask you to make a decision today. Whatever that number was that you started with, be better tomorrow. I don't care how much better, just be better. And do that every day this week so that next Sunday when we come together, you're better. And your vision's better. And do whatever you need to do this week to get rid of some distraction, to take your focus off your circumstances and put it back on God's plan. So here's how we're going to close. I'm going to invite you to go ahead and stand up. And in every true pastor stereotype, we're going to ask you to bow your heads, close your eyes, because that's just the thing we do. And just for a minute, just with heads bowed, eyes closed, just you know in your heart where to start. For some of you, you don't know who Jesus is. This is the most you've ever heard about him, and you're not sure you're ready for all this. That's okay. Just come back next week. Just crack that Bible open this week. Ask one question. Say one prayer. For some of you, you have done this for a really, really long time, but you've stayed the exact same. And it's time to do more. It's time to be better. It's time to dive a little deeper into who God is and how much he loves you. And for some, you know what your next step is. But there's lots of circumstances that keep you from doing it. And I'm going to pray that you don't get a Sunday afternoon nap. You don't get to rest tonight. You get no sleep at all. Because I love you that much. I'm going to pray you get no sleep until you take your next step. God, it's because of you all this is possible. It's because of your purpose, of your vision, of your passion that we can stand here today and celebrate you, but that we can have hope. God, that we can take next steps. We can ask for help. We can find purpose in this crazy world. God, for this church, make us better, but use us better. We don't know how it all works out. We don't know what's next, but we know you're with us. We know you're powerful. We know you have a plan. So God, let us celebrate and find joy in leaning into that. We pray it all in your Son's name. Amen.
How great the chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. And beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, and my living hope. Oh, hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh, hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your very body began to breathe out of the silence, and the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning, and that sealed the promise. Your very body began to breathe out of the silence. The roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Oh, Jesus, yours is the victory. Hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Sing hallelujah, oh hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. For Jesus Christ, my living hope. For God, you are my living hope.
Hey, we're so glad you're here today. If I didn't get to meet you before, stick around. I'd love to meet you after, and come back next week for part 2 of Better. God bless. Have a great week.